So obviously, business has very much picked up at 205. All of a sudden, Jon Jones has options in the light heavyweight division. And not that long ago, like 2 weeks ago, we were talking about, all right, does he need to go up to heavyweight ASAP? Does he need to fight someone like Israel Adesanya ASAP? And I would say let's pump the brakes on all of that, because he's got two very good options right now at 205 pounds. You got the Pole himself, Jan Blachowicz, with that huge win. He's won 7 of his last 8. He's on a 3-fight winning streak. Just got a first-round KO against a very tough, durable, and very talented opponent in Corey Anderson. And he had that great moment. So now you could sell it, right? You've got that great moment. You got that great footage. But, sometimes in this sport, we tend to have very, very, very short-term memories. And I think sometimes people forget that Dominick Reyes fought against Jon Jones 9 days ago. And so on Saturday night, when the emotions were at their highest, I thought of maybe waiting until today to put out the poll, because that's what we usually do. But I wanted to see, how real is recency bias. And I put out this poll. I said, and this is literally like 20 minutes after the main event on Saturday night. Who do you now want to see Jon Jones fight next? And I asked you, do you want to see Jan Blachowicz? Do you want to see Dominick Reyes? And I threw in the other there. That probably, that's like the Stipe, Israel, or any other person that comes to mind. Luckily, that didn't really come into play. Just 7% of you said other. Came down to Jan, Dominick. And as you can see right over there, for once, recency bias didn't come into play. Jan at 38.4%, Dominick Reyes at 54.6%. So despite the fact that in the moment, Jan was celebrating and just scored that amazing knockout and had his moment with Jon Jones, you're going with Dominick. And guess what? And I'll say this when he's on the show in around 13 or so minutes. I agree with you. It should be Dominick Reyes next. And that's not taking anything away from Jan Blachowicz. What he did on Saturday was amazing. And I love the fact that he's emerged as a contender, because I didn't necessarily see this coming. Remember when he first fought Corey Anderson back in September of 2015, UFC 191, that was a very one-sided fight. He looked nowhere near close to being a title contender at 205. And he's come a very long way, and he's changed a lot. And he's learned how to become a contender. Remember last week on the show, he talked about the issues going into that fight, overtraining and all that stuff. No longer an issue. But when you have the kind of fight that Dominick Reyes had against Jon Jones, and I'm not belaboring the point here, and I'm not trying to harp on the point per se. I see a lot of you say, oh, you're crying about this. You're crying. No, this is my job to talk about this. This was an amazing fight. This is one of the best fights of the year. I know we're just, a month and a half in, but this was a great fight, and a fight that I very much enjoyed watching again. But it's also a fight that when I watched it again, I was more confident in the fact that Dominick Reyes won 3 rounds to 2. And this has kind of split, all of us, right? It's a hot debate. And there are people out there who say that Jon won 3-2, and there are others who say that Dominick won 3-2. For the most part, it comes down to that 3rd round. But when you have a fight like that, where it's that good and that close, and I know historically the UFC doesn't grant rematches to a challenger if they lose a title fight, and I don't like when this is a thing that comes into play. In fact, it's just happened once in the history of the UFC, according to our stats and info group. Pedro Rizzo, Randy Couture, way back, UFC 31-34. Rizzo ended up losing both fights, and that's fine. Typically, you lose as a challenger, you need to work your way back up. But in this case, that fight was so good. There's a built-in rivalry. I think promotionally, despite the fact that Jan had that moment with Jon Jones cage side, I think a bigger fight for Jon right now is Dominick Reyes, because it was such a hot topic, because so many people were talking about it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday after the fight. I feel like that's the way to go. Go with the rematch, the immediate rematch. And don't say that rematch is always going to be there, because it wasn't always going to be there for Alexander Gustafsson, right? Gustafsson had to work his way back up, and it almost never happened for a multitude of reasons. It took him 3.5 years to get the rematch, and we know about that. Oh, yeah, the rematch will always be there. No, you got to strike while the iron's hot. And it's a bit of a crummy situation for Jan, because let's say Jon Jones would have won that fight relatively convincingly. This would have been a no-brainer. I'd be sitting here Monday morning, Monday afternoon, talking about how, yeah, you got to make that fight. Make it in June, make it in July, make it in May, whatever the case is. That's the fight to make. Jon Jones versus Jan Blachowicz. And I won't be upset, because the guy has proved his point, and he did something spectacularly. And he even said before the fight that he was told that he'd be next. I won't be upset per se, but I do feel like Dominick Reyes has done enough to warrant that title shot. And because it was so close, because it was so controversial, again, not a robbery and not taking anything away from Jon Jones. The way he came back in the 4th and 5th was amazing. And he dug down deep like he did against the Mauler back in the day. All great things. All will lead to a really great fight. Sometimes I feel like we think, okay, it's always going to be there, and have him go fight this guy and have him go fight that guy, and then things happen and you don't get that moment. It's very rare when you get moments like these, and I think you have to strike. So what do you do with Jan? Jan, in fact, said in the post-fight show that he wouldn't mind waiting. I don't love that. If you're going to run it back quickly, then that's cool. If we're going to wait till September, October to run it back, and now we're talking about him being out for a year, I don't love that, because by then the momentum of that knockout and the buzz surrounding it will be long, long gone. But he did throw it out there, which leads me to believe that he won't be heartbroken if he doesn't get it. If he wants to be active, I would do Thiago Santos versus Jan. I would do that fight. The winner of that fight goes on to fight the winner of Jon Jones versus Dominick Reyes, or you have him sit on the sidelines. But if you're asking me for my vote after what we saw on Saturday, as amazing as it was, as spectacular as it was, I go with Dominick Reyes next for Jon Jones. I wanted to talk about another thing that happened on Saturday as well. This Diego Sanchez-Michel Pereira fight that ended in somewhat controversy. I think everyone agrees that, that was a very illegal knee that Pereira threw and landed, and thus Diego Sanchez wins via DQ. Now, let's be clear about a few things. Diego Sanchez was losing that fight. Diego Sanchez was losing 2-0, and he was also en route to losing that fight. Nothing that was going on in that fight suggested that he was going to turn things around and win the fight. However, this idea that Diego Sanchez was ducking Pereira, this idea that Diego Sanchez was looking for a way out, this idea that Diego Sanchez is scared, this idea that, that he's a coward, all this stuff and more is complete hogwash. I mean, are you kidding me? First of all, this guy's been around since Tough One. This is one of the, the true fighters in this sport. And could you make a case that he's sticking around too long? Perhaps, but that has nothing to do with what we are talking about right now. This idea that all the blame is being put on him for stopping the fight or for saying that he can't continue after absorbing a very clearly illegal knee to the head is mind-blowing to me. How about we blame the guy who threw the illegal knee? How about we blame the guy who was up 2-0 and for some reason thought it was a good idea to throw that knee and land that knee? How about we blame that guy? How about we blame the guy who didn't have the presence of mind to understand that Diego Sanchez was a downed opponent and that things would not go your way if you land that knee? How about we blame that guy, not the guy who said he couldn't continue? I hate this idea that we have to pin it all on the guy who was hit illegally. I hate this idea. It's like, and I know it's not a apples to apples analogy, but if you get hit with a face mask penalty, like you don't ask the guy who had his face mask ripped off or his helmet ripped off, you don't ask him if he wants to accept the 15-yard penalty. It's not how it works. A penalty is a penalty, and that was clearly a penalty. That was illegal. Honestly, like the fact that he even considered continuing to me is crazy. And you know how I feel about the Anthony Smith-Jon Jones situation. And I know you want to say that that's cowardly and whatnot. No, there are rules for a reason. It shouldn't be on you to try to overcome the fact that someone hit you with an illegal knee and you have to be man enough. No. Why? Why? You didn't do it. You didn't do anything wrong. You didn't get hit. Excuse me. You didn't throw the strike. You're not the one who cheated. You're not the one who did anything illegal. You're not the one who, lost where you were, or didn't have sight or the foresight that this would turn out this way. Why is it on you? Why is Diego Sanchez being blamed? Look, he gives us a lot of fodder. What's going on right now with him and his guru and all that, I don't want to touch any of that stuff because it's all just a little out there for me. But Diego Sanchez deserves a lot more respect than the respect that he's getting or the lack of respect that he's getting right now. This man was hit with an illegal knee. To suggest that he was looking for a way out, guess what? If in fact he did get hit with the knee and the knee really didn't hit him that hard and didn't affect him that hard, I still wouldn't care. Take the W, man. In this day and age, when you only get 50% of your pay to walk in the cage and you only get the other percentage if you win, take the money and run. You've put in enough time. You've bled enough. You've sweat enough. That is insane to me that people are blaming this guy. And this culture in our sport to blame the guy who was hit. The fact that Anthony Smith for a second thought that he would be shamed for taking the W after being hit very clearly with an illegal knee, and I don't want to open that can of worms. But come on. What? The guy who's getting the heat is the one who got hit? How does that make any sense? And we're not talking about a grazing shot. That was very much an illegal knee. What are we talking about? Stop doing this. It's so wrong. And especially when we start to, question the heart, question the fight of legends, right? Diego, Cerrone. In the past month, we've had Donald Cerrone, the winningest fighter in UFC history, be accused of throwing a fight. And now we have Diego Sanchez being accused of looking for a way out. No. Not true. Ridiculous. Absolute hogwash. Are you kidding me? Come on. Look at that cut. Look at that cut right there. You're telling me that didn't hit him? Take the victory, take the money, and run. Stop blaming the guy who got hit. Blame the guy who threw the illegal knee. And by the way, I actually like the fact that Pereira doubled down. I love the fact that he did that. Like, I thought that was funny. He came out dancing, and he danced even longer this time. Do you, man? This is your career. And he's going to have to pay the consequences. And it's entertaining if you have the, if you have the energy, you have the cardio to do that sort of thing. Do you? It's all good. Just don't, throw illegal strikes. And if you're going to throw them, don't land them, because you could throw it and miss, and then all is okay. But if you land it, that's going to happen. That's a big problem. Hello, everyone. It's Ariel Helwani. I just came here to thank you for watching our ESPN YouTube channel. It's the best. You know what else is the best? The ESPN app. You can get highlights, analysis, all that stuff and more. And if you want premium content and live streaming sports, there's only one place for all of that. It's ESPN Plus.